Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Monday. Joining me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome all listeners to our little alcove of storytelling. Timstradamus, I have a saying, and I would like to know what you make of this. The saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, try again, then quit. No use being a damn fool about it.
Well, I can always appreciate words of wisdom, and honestly, what that means to me is when something that you're trying is a repeated failure, maybe taking a step back and finding something else is the best course of action.
I definitely agree with that. And I'd also have to say that goes close with what I believe that also says. I think there's a lot of people that forget the journey to get to your goal is sometimes more important than actually just getting to your goal. As wise words from Kung Fu Panda once said, now is a gift. That's why it's called the present.
Skadoosh. For new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
Before we get started with our stories today, we have a few announcements we need to make.
The first is we have some scheduling changes with our channel. Rather than uploading on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we will just be uploading on Mondays.
Now don't worry, we'll definitely still be giving you the same amount of stories, just in one episode, not 3.
That way, if you'd like to binge it, you can. And if you'd like to parcel it throughout the week, you can definitely do that too. And now for our second announcement, we would like to welcome our new patrons. Thank you for your support, Danny and Ayana Worthen.
Yes, welcome to the Tea Club.
Now, for any listeners wanting to support our channel, we do have a Patreon. It's in the description below, and in it, I have my actual tea recipes. At least some of them. I'm still working on more.
And for our last announcement, congratulations to my little brother. He proposed to his girlfriend over the holiday.
Yes.
And she said yes.
She did. Now I have a new sister. Congratulations, Rusty and JoJo.
And now that we have all of that out of the way.
Whew, that was a lot of work.
What have you brewed for me this morning?
I have crafted for you my vanilla black tea. I wanted to go ahead and start you off with some caffeine that has that smooth transition. And I've tried a new black tea leaf that I think is actually really smooth.
Oh, yeah. Smooth like butter. 5 out of 5.
Well, while you go ahead and enjoy your caffeinated brew, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For our first story, am I the a-hole for eating at the children I babysit for's house? I, 20 female, babysit for some extra cash on the side. This just happened and it's eating me up, so here we go. So the family ordered pizza for dinner. Mom left cash on the table for me to pay. It was me and 2 boys, 7 and 10, large cheese pizza and breadsticks. I have always been under the impression that the babysitter is allowed to have a reasonable amount of dinner if they're expected to serve dinner. I've babysat a few times in the past and have never encountered this. When the parents came home to relieve me, they asked how tonight went. I said fine and said that the pizza place was really good as I had never ordered from there before. Mom looked at me puzzled and asked why I ate the kids' dinner. I said I just had 2 pieces of pizza and a breadstick. I feel as if this was not an inappropriate amount to eat. However, the parents disagreed. Dad said that they didn't expect to have to feed me dinner as well and told me not to eat their family's food. Overall, I am very uncomfortable and confused by this experience. Both boys were fed and did not complain about being hungry for the rest of the night. I personally have always assumed, perhaps wrongly, that if I am expected to serve dinner as a sitter, then I am welcome to have a serving. Is this something anyone else has experienced? Am I the a-hole? Just to add context, in the comment section, Opie said that there were leftovers.
So let's take a course in how to burn bridges with good babysitters.
With Timstradamus 101.
If you don't know this, good babysitters are very hard to come by. And if you find them, you do what you can to keep them. It sounds like ROP didn't go out of their way to eat all the pizza and not share with the kids she was watching. She says there was even leftovers. In my mind, etiquette is if they're around serving the food, like our OP said, they're also allowed to have it. Unless, I guess, dietary restrictions, or they're told explicitly from the parents that this is just for the children, which that did not happen. So in my mind, I don't think you would be the a-hole OP.
So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is not the a-hole. In fact, there were a lot of parents that came out saying finding a good babysitter, just as you said, Timstradamus, is like a ray of sunshine in a world where you have a lot of people that are just really bad, especially to their kids. So the fact that there's a really good babysitter who's looking at and making sure that everything's fair and correct based on a moral, ethical standpoint, a lot of people came out and said, look, this family sounds rude and cheap. For me, I have to say, it's no different, in my opinion, when you have a babysitter than having a guest in your home. That guest is, of course, required to follow some rules as long as they're aware of those rules. If they're not breaking any sort of etiquette, such as digging into your fridge to eat your food, that's a big no-no. That's a very guest thing to do. So that should be something the babysitter shouldn't do. But if we ever had a guest over, Timstradamus, and you and I ordered pizza for our family and our guest was just sitting there, we would definitely offer them a piece.
Oh, for sure.
That's just etiquette in itself. And for me, it comes down to that. There's something that's happening that involves the babysitter, which is also a guest in the home. Yes, an employed guest, but essentially just that. Why is it that they would be excluded from something unless the family's just being rude and cheap and all they see is just labor?
Well, if they were going to go about it like that, they definitely should have told the babysitter first.
I definitely agree with that. And that's where, if you have explicit rules in your home, people who come into it need to know what they're getting themselves into. Well, let's go ahead and go to our next story and let's see about this flight. Am I the a-hole for refusing to volunteer as a doctor on a flight? I'm male, mid-30s, a medical doctor, working as an internal medicine hospitalist at a major hospital. Recently, I was on a long-haul international flight. Usually, I sleep on flights, but this was during my waking hours, so I decided to spend my free time enjoying the in-flight entertainment and free drinks. I had already been drinking even before the flight while I was in the lounge. I was not slurring or excessively drunk, but I was feeling a strong buzz. Usually, I don't chat with my co-passengers. I just sleep or do my own thing. On this flight, the configuration of the business class cabin was such that the passengers in the middle row were practically just beside each other. There was just a small barrier separating me and my co-passenger, female mid-30s, that could be raised, but it still didn't do much to separate us. She started up a conversation, and being a little intoxicated, I was also feeling chatty. When she asked what I do, I mentioned I'm a doctor, and I work at such and such hospital. After some more small talk, we both started doing our own thing. I was trying to watch my movie and enjoy my drinks when an announcement was made asking if there was a doctor on the flight. Normally, I would present myself to the cabin crew and help out, but after several hours of on-flight boozing, I was pretty drunk. I was not able to think clearly and probably would have done more harm than good in such a situation. I didn't react to the announcement at all. I continued watching my movie and drinking my drink. My co-passenger tapped me and said they just announced they need a doctor. I replied that someone else would help, or they would get instructions from the medical team on the ground. She tried convincing me to go help, but I refused. She then said I was being an unbelievable a-hole, and if the passenger died, it was my fault. I said, listen, lady, just because I'm a doctor doesn't mean I'm not on call 24/7 to provide medical care on demand. I work when I'm at the hospital. Outside, I'm just like everyone else, and I'm entitled to drink and relax. She had a disgusted look on her face, but didn't talk to me after that. I didn't want to engage with her either. I'm not sure what happened to the passenger who needed medical assistance, but since I didn't hear any more announcements, I assumed all was well. While exiting the aircraft, this lady called me an a-hole again. In my mind, I'm very clear that since I was intoxicated, I could not provide medical assistance. I was drinking on my own time, and there was no expectation that I would need to be sober. Doctors get to enjoy life too. I can't stay sober on every flight just in case there's an emergency. I don't think I'm the a-hole, but I thought I'd get external opinions. Am I the a-hole?
So let's fly into the story.
I see what you did there.
Lame. But I'm going to have to say that I don't believe he's the a-hole. He says he's a doctor. He had a conversation with someone sitting next to him on a plane. He started drinking a little bit, and the intercom comes up and they're asking if there's a doctor on board. He doesn't go and assist them because he already states that he's been drinking and he would cause more harm than good. That should have been the end of that. Now, unfortunately, the woman sitting next to him thinks that it's his job when he's not on the clock to go and help. If he's walking around pointing at body parts that clearly aren't the body part, that's a problem. So I actually respect him for sticking his foot in the ground. And
if it was his foot, it could have been his hand because he was drunk.
At that point, yeah. In life, you have to understand that you can't make everyone happy. The decisions that you make, you need to stick with. He did, and for the right reasons. Hopefully that person on the plane was okay. It sounds like they were because they didn't make any more announcements, and he says he didn't hear any more commotion. So hopefully it worked out for the best for everyone. The woman next to him, though, needs to get a little bit of perspective on life. You can't force people to do things. But yeah, in my opinion, OP, you're not the a-hole.
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag here. The Reddit posting actually puts this as no a-holes here. And there's a lot of individuals that actually break it down to kind of explain that. So many people are saying you're not the a-hole for not volunteering. Everyone understands his rationale. However, what they say that he is the a-hole for is the fact that he went on a small rant rather than just letting her know, hey, I'm impaired and can't do it, so please stop.
Well, wouldn't he have gone on the small rant because he's impaired?
And that's what other people actually put
how many
forward.
people, when they get tipsy, make the right choices when it comes to a verbal conversation, especially when you're talking about her accusing him? Because this didn't come from like a fun, hey, go up there and help him out. It came from a, you're an a-hole, get up there and help. How often are you going to meet that situation with calm?
Very rarely.
And it doesn't sound like he had an attitude with her. He was just over explaining things as people do when they get a little tipsy.
And I also agree with that. I'd have to say here, this is probably just a learning phase for our OP. Yes, he was drunk, but he was still drunk enough to understand that he shouldn't volunteer to be a doctor on this flight. Then at the same time, he should have just as easily just cut it really short and said, I'm impaired and I can't do it. Now he knows, and individuals have put forward, rather than go ahead and rant your feelings on what you are and aren't responsible for, go ahead and just let people know, hey, I can't do that, period.
Do you think that passenger next to him would have taken that as an answer?
And that's what I come back to. There's a lot of people that feel as if they're entitled to tell you what to do. This has become a really big problem, I feel, in our society as a norm. If someone says that they can't do something, then it's none of my business as to why they can or can't. Sure. That's their own business. For her to go so far as to continue to be aggressive to him really strikes me the wrong way. It should have just been, hey, there's somebody else that can go ahead and take care of it. And I would have said, cool, I just wanted you to know that there was an announcement, just in case you didn't hear it. That should have been the end of it.
Yeah, just sounds like some people need to work on their boundaries.
Well, that was an interesting read. And I'm really glad that at least we didn't hear any bad news from that other passenger on the plane. But let's see what's going to happen in this next one. A funeral. Am I the a-hole for going to a dead family member's funeral without telling my wife? Me and my wife have been married for 3 years. For context, I have a huge extended family. Some family members live close by, others lives farther. I have an aunt from my mother's side who passed away at the end of November. She lived an hour and 20 minutes away, but I loved her very much. She was my favorite aunt, and I was devastated by her death, but I am good at concealing my griefs. Me, my mother, my siblings, and other family members all went to the funeral. I told my wife that I was going to be out of town for 5 days. She asked me why, and I told her I was just visiting some relatives. But recently, my wife got upset when she found out the real reason why I went out of town. It was last week when me and my wife went to my parents' house for dinner, and my mother started to reminisce about my dead aunt, and my wife asked if my aunt passed away. My mom was surprised and confused and told her yes, she passed away, and was sort of shocked that she didn't know. Later, when we went home, me and my wife went at it. She told me how wrong I was for hiding something major from her like this, but I argued with her saying that it's not a big deal and it's my grief to deal with, not hers, and it has nothing to do with her and our marriage, and it won't affect the marriage in a positive or negative way. She told me that she was upset that she wasn't there to support me, and I rolled my eyes and told her I don't need her support at all, and I told her to get over it, and I even promised her that I will try to suck it up and act normal so you won't have to deal with my pain and suffering, but she still felt the need to tell me that I needed to be more vulnerable because she doesn't feel comfortable being vulnerable to me. My mother later called me to tell me what I did to my wife was wrong because my mother and other family members thought that my wife was a terrible person and that she did not give a damn about me. Am I the a-hole for keeping my grief to myself and not telling my wife about the funeral?
Merlanta. This one's bad. Yes, clearly you're the a-hole. Like, your wife is upset with you because you didn't tell her that your favorite aunt passed away. This isn't like the aunt that you didn't like or that was estranged from the family for many years. This one was your favorite one. And if you're acting like that and compartmentalizing everything in your life, because that's what it sounds like her husband's doing, to the point where he goes, this doesn't affect you. That's why I didn't tell you. It doesn't make things good or bad. No, it actually does. She says it herself. She wanted to be there to support you during this time. And because of the way you conducted yourself by not telling your wife that a family member of yours passed, I'm just kind of blown away. How do you make the time and go to the funeral without ever letting your wife know what's up?
There are a lot of comments that our poster actually put in the comment section, such as our OP's wife did know his aunt, had talked to her, that he doesn't like and doesn't want to be vulnerable in front of her or anyone else. In fact, let me go ahead and read to you a couple inserts that I think are more poignant to me. The first one, he said, was, I never once got emotional in front of my wife because I am a grown man and I don't want her to see me as a softie if I cry in front of her. Additionally, our OP put down in another comment on another thread, I chose my wife because she is not combative and loud. She knows how to shut up and listen when we have serious conversations and never cuts me off. She never yells. Yelling is one of my deal breakers, and she knows I would kick her to the curb if she ever yells at me. I don't take BS from anybody, and yelling in my house is a no-no. On the rare times she has attitudes with me, she took accountability and apologized, and I told her that if she ever has an attitude with me again, I will divorce her. She respects that, and now she made progress because she's realized that I don't play like that.
Ooh, ROP uses emotions as weapons. I feel bad for your wife. Yeah, this story took a real dark turn on that. Because initially I thought maybe we're just dealing with someone who hasn't been given the tools to properly handle emotions in their life. But if someone ever has to tell you that if you do X, Y, and Z around them, they're going to kick you to the curb, that's emotional manipulation. You're allowed to feel what you're allowed to feel. Now, learning better ways to go about it within an argument. Yes, yelling. I don't really condone yelling. You shouldn't be doing that with each other. There's better ways to go about having disagreements in a relationship. And that is something that people have to work on within one, because unfortunately, most of us have grown up in a household where yelling was just a normal thing. So you grew up thinking that it was. So it takes time to learn better habits in the moments.
Essentially rewiring your brain.
I think this story really comes to like a big crescendo for me when you think about being at the table with your family and they're reminiscing about a loved one. And then in your mind, you're going, why would you say those things? Unless, wait, have they died? And then they're like, yes, they've died like 2 weeks ago.
In fact, the whole family thought that she was heartless because apparently they didn't see her at all during any of it.
And then you just kind of wonder what he told the family about her absence. Because yes, that is kind of a shock, especially because he lets us know later that she did have a relationship with the aunt. This is just a bad relationship all around.
The consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, it got the poo mode activated on the AITA forum. And individuals said, you need a lot of serious therapy. There's a lot that you need to unpack. And what you're doing to your wife is definitely not healthy. Not for her. And definitely not for whatever's going on with you. Whew. Well, that was pretty heavy, wasn't it? Unfortunately, it doesn't get any better. So let's go to our next story.
That smile on your face.
Am I the a-hole for telling my husband I told you so and laughing at him when we got the paternity test results? I, 27 female, have been married to my husband, 28 male, for 2 years and gave birth to our daughter 5 weeks ago. I'll try to keep this short so I don't waste your time with any irrelevant details. What happened was that our daughter came out with blonde hair and pale blue eyes, while my husband and I have brown hair and brown eyes. My husband freaked out at this and refused to listen to my explanation that sometimes babies are born with lighter hair and eyes that get darker over time. He demanded a paternity test and threatened to divorce me if I didn't comply, so I did. After my daughter and I got home from the hospital, my husband went to stay at his parents' house for the first 3 weeks to get some space from me while I recovered, and he told them what was happening. My mother-in-law called and informed me that if the paternity test revealed that the child wasn't his, she would do anything within her power to make sure that I was taken to the cleaners during the divorce. I had my sister to lean on and help me take care of the baby during this time. We got the results back yesterday, and my husband came home to view them with me. I was on the couch in the living room, so he sat next to me and we started to read the results. They showed that he was the father, and my husband had this shocked, kind of mortified look on his face with his eyes wide as he stared at it. I couldn't help but say, "I told you so," and started laughing at the way he looked. My husband snapped out of his shock and got mad at me for laughing at him. We argued for a bit, which was mainly him yelling at me, before my sister came downstairs and my husband shut up. After that, my husband went back to his parents' house to clear his head, and 2 to 3 hours later, my mother-in-law called to scold me about laughing in my husband's face, because apparently it was kicking him while he was down. She also left a couple nasty texts, essentially saying the same thing this morning. I don't think I'm an a-hole, but I'd like outsider perspective on this. Edit. Since someone asked in the comments, but I can't find it anymore, I have zero history of cheating. Am I the a-hole?
I'm happy the OP cleared that up, because that was probably the biggest question I had at the beginning when you started reading was, okay, so we have this paternity test, and normally those only get cropped into relationships when there is history of infidelity. She says it though, that's not a part of their relationship. So sounds like her husband's been watching way too much social media for his own good. But I do understand, based off the way the current state of our culture is, that paternity tests are important. And I can get why initially, if you're the husband in this situation, the kid pops out, looks nothing like the both of you, you would have that initial jerk reaction to it. But you do need to take into account that yes, babies are born sometimes not looking anything like you, and then those things fade away. Voyse was born with blue eyes. By the time she was, I think, 11, they were brown.
Yes, they did.
It happens. Brown and beautiful.
Thank you.
But apparently he didn't do that much research on it. What did you win out of that? Because you ended up making your wife feel like a villain in a moment where you both are supposed to be at your happiest.
I think what's crazy for me is that he did it during a time where you know she's probably dealing with postpartum.
What you ended up doing was creating a very savage memory for something that's supposed to be beautiful. And every time you look back on that now with your wife, if she stays your wife, that's going to be marred in all of that drama. And in the moment when she laughs, because I am certain that that pent up emotion, and because I guess she says he leaves for 3 weeks in the middle of the paternity test. And I kind of doubt that there was any healthy conversations that was happening during this time period. The second you guys come back into contact with each other, you couldn't just take for that 1 second when she was vindicated. Poking someone with the "I told you so" is probably not a good way to go about any conversation.
But at the same time, I can also understand it that she's probably been dealing with a lot for 3 weeks.
And he's lucky that it didn't get worse, because what our OP was owed in that moment was understanding and an apology that may take you a lifetime to pay back. If there's never been any question of infidelity at all, and the first time a problem crops up like that, you're willing to abandon your wife for 3 weeks and then tell her that if I find out that that kid's not ours, I'm leaving you. What trust did you have in the relationship to begin with? And if there was none, then why are you in the relationship? You ruin that beautiful moment that you had. You don't get that time back. You don't get those moments back. What you do have is a whole lot of regret and shame. OP, in my opinion, you are not the a-hole. If you want this relationship to go forward, though, which is, in my mind, would be kind of hard, definitely go get yourselves into some type of counseling.
So the consensus on Reddit was that our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, there's one comment that I'd like to read that just made me laugh. And they said, "My husband and I both have dark brown hair and dark eyes. Our child, blonde hair and blue eyes. Has OP's husband never heard of recessive genes?" We had someone that answered them and said his mom wrote him a note so he wouldn't have to take that class. Now, I would just like to go ahead and put out here, there was a few red flags for me personally. The first one, of course, as you pointed it out, was the fact that he would jump to such a huge conclusion. You can still ask for a paternity if you want to go ahead and have some peace of mind. I can understand that. Have that certainty if that's what you would like. I think for me, what went that one step further when our OP was explaining this situation was that our OP's husband essentially released his mother as if she were a dog that just hounded at our OP, threatening our OP, and then turning around and rather than understand, hey, I was wrong and I'm truly sorry for thinking that way and let's go ahead and work on this together, he turns around and he tries to make it about him again and then sicks his mother on her again. It's absolutely disgusting. What worries me is the fact that they were having this argument and our OP was saying that he was yelling at her, not that they were yelling at each other. He was yelling at her, and the only time that he shut up was when her sister came down. Is very worrisome to understand what this relationship is, because it doesn't sound like a healthy one to me.
Nope. Especially, yes, you're right, when you're having your mother be your attack dog to your wife.
I can't imagine that that marriage is going to last very long, but it's because this foundation is very rocky at best.
No respect and no trust. That is a very sad story.
Unfortunately, it is. But let's go to our next story and see if I can pull at those tear ducts a little. Am I the a-hole for punishing my daughter after she lashed out at her stepdad? I, 32 female, have been married to my husband, Mike, 34 male, for 5 years. Mike's first wife passed away in December of 2012, when their son, TJ, was only 5. Meanwhile, I've been divorced since 2013, but my daughter, Dana, is still close with her bio dad, Dick, until now. I met Mike in 2016. After we married, we had a near perfect family, and TJ was even comfortable enough to call me mom. However, on April this year, TJ was hit by a drunk driver and was killed instantly. Our family was devastated. Understandably, Mike was inconsolable. I was the one who made the arrangements for TJ's service and made sure the drunk driver was jailed. In his grief, Mike didn't come out of the house for months. He's now seeing a therapist to help him process everything. Then, last month, Dana told me that Dick invited her to spend the holidays with him. I said no. Christmas has always been tough for Mike because of his wife's passing. Dana knows this. And now he also lost TJ. I told Dana that we're the only family Mike has left, so we'll be celebrating Christmas at our home. She was disappointed, but seemed to understand. However, yesterday she pressed again, this time over dinner with Mike. Dana said that Dick rented a vacation house where they could go skiing and do other fun stuff. However, I still said no, and I explained to her again why. After an hour of arguing, Dana started raising her voice. Mike intervened and said maybe I should just let Dana go. I still said no. I know Mike was just being modest and that he'd be heartbroken if Dana leaves. I know I will be. I then said something like, "Come on, Dana. This is the first time we're celebrating Christmas with just the three of us. How about we make those cookies TJ really liked?" Then, to my shock, Dana replied with, "He's not even my real brother, and Mike's not even my real family. I want to spend time with my real dad," then stomped her way to her room. This was the first time Dana acted like this. Mike had been nothing but kind, caring, and supportive to her. She has also told me that she feels good and safe with Mike. We even baked a cake during TJ's birthday, and Dana made a beautiful slideshow to honor him. Mike then told her how much she means to him as his daughter. I looked at Mike, who was on the verge of tears, but he just told me to let it go since it's Christmas time, and maybe Dana was just being a teenager, she's 15, and to just let her spend time with Dick. I then went to Dana's room and told her that she can spend Christmas with Dick if she apologizes to Mike. She refused, saying she didn't say anything that wasn't true. That's when I started to get mad. I told her that she's staying home for Christmas and that I'm taking all her devices during the break. I also said she won't be joining her friend's sleepover after New Year's. Dick then called and said I'm overreacting and that I'm an a-hole for ruining Dana's break. However, I don't see how disciplining my child makes me an a-hole. So, am I the a-hole for what I did?
What a tragic story you have told us. Let's see if I understand the facts. We've got a OP that has a daughter from a previous relationship, and she's married to a gentleman that also has a child from a previous relationship, TJ. Now, unfortunately, TJ passes away because he gets hit by a drunk driver. I am so sorry for that. That's very sad to hear. The daughter in this story is 15. They don't really tell us TJ's age.
No.
Okay. But I got to believe it's somewhere around the age of 15-ish. And the daughter has her biological father that she wants to go and spend time with. I think the OP named him Dick.
Correct.
Okay.
Clearly she's got feelings.
Yeah. Regardless of those feelings, at the end of the day, what this story really revolves around for me is the daughter wants to spend time with her father. You got to think about this from the 15-year-old's point of view. She just lost her brother. Now, I understand that that is a stepbrother, but at that age, a lot of the time, especially if you're brought up in the right household, those lines are already gone. That was a brother. You're telling me that a 15-year-old would handle grief correctly? Very few adults do that. So her lashing out in the way she did once her mother said no for the final time is not out of the norm. The only one that has any reasoning is the stepfather. When he comes to you and says, "Hey, you got to let her go." And you go back into that room with your daughter and you double down on the bad. She wasn't wrong for how she reacted with the corner that you pushed her into. Yeah, does it suck that she said the things she did? Of course. But you're talking about a 15-year-old.
And if anything, she probably feels really bad saying it.
Of course.
The only reason why she's probably doubling down on it is because her mom's still trying to push her in that corner.
And she's not seeing that. And that's where I kind of come back around on all of it and go, I think everyone needs to go get some help. It can't be easy losing a son. It's not easy losing anyone. But I know it sounds like to me that she's trying to grasp and make everyone whole and together. But sometimes a little bit of distance, especially when traumatic things like this happen in your life, you do need to let people go handle it the way they need to handle it. As long as it's not in a self-destructive manner. All she's saying is she wants to go stay with her father for Christmas. I think you should have respected that. So, OP, you are definitely the a-hole.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, many commenters put it like this. OP, your daughter is not your husband's emotional support child. Many of them questioned why Dana would explode this badly if it's so out of the normal. Many wonder if maybe OP hasn't done this, where they've tried to push a holiday or event on their daughter, knowing that it's just going to be sacrifice time from Dick because they have apparently feelings about Dick. And then other commenters pointed out, your husband Mike understands that Dick is Dana's real father and respects that. So why can't you, OP?
Yep. But it comes back to the fact that she named him Dick. There's something there that she hasn't told us about.
Exactly. And that's how I also feel. Well, I hope that OP has read through all of the feedback and makes the right choice when it concerns her family, because this is going to create a rift that they're not going to be able to come back from if she's not careful.
I can second that.
Well, let's go ahead and go to our next story and see if I can bring back a little laughter. Am I the a-hole for calling my best friend's fiance a bitch?
Okay.
My best friend is getting married soon, and I'm extremely upset at him over some comments he made today. He promised me about 5 to 7 years ago that one day in the future he would take me to go to Miami for a trip. He knows that I love doing scuba diving and snorkeling, and he told me that he wanted to give me a chance to do that in the ocean. I spoke to him recently, and he told me that he had to throw out our Florida plans because his stupid fiancé wants to have kids as soon as possible after they get married. I am furiously mad because he is going back against his promises that he made for me. He then told me that I probably need to get myself a job so that I can work if I ever have the hopes of finding a wife in the future. He said you should start working instead of just sitting at home trying to pursue a career in making YouTube content, as it is not a stable income. He claims that going into the film arts or filmmaking industry is not a steady career path. I'm just so extremely mad because of all these comments that he is making. I tried talking to my other friends about it and how mad I am at him for canceling plans with me, and everyone else is calling me an a-hole for that. My other friends are saying to me, your best friend is not obligated to take you anymore, and you're an a-hole for giving him a hard time. I'm just so angry, and I'm about to explode. I'm supposed to be the best man, and I don't even know if I can even do it anymore because I'm just so mad at him. I've just started talking trash about him ever since he got me upset. I refer to his fiancée as a bitch when talking to my other friends. Am I really an a-hole when he is going back against all of his promises? I'm just really upset, and I feel like my feelings are being ignored.
I guess I'll start with this. What I'm failing to understand is, because I think he says it was 7 years ago that this promise was made.
5 to 7 years ago.
Even though the friend has a kid and has a wife, it does not keep one from taking a trip in the future to go scuba diving in Miami. You can still go do those things down the road. Maybe not at this second, but for those 7 years in between, you guys really haven't done it. So what does that matter that it be another couple years into the future or whenever it does happen? Why does it have to be that you burn the bridge because it's never going to happen now because he has kids and a wife? That's kind of odd.
So I'm wondering if they had this talk. And mind you, this is just a lot of assumptions because there's no way for me to tell. I have to take it as what our OP says. And our OP says his friend promised he would take him to Miami in the future. But this is where I come back to how you say things as a child and what your expectations are as an adult. Because Timstradamus, if I told a friend, one day we're going to go to Miami, that doesn't necessarily mean that I expect to pay for somebody to go with me.
How old is the OP?
Can't answer that.
Because see, I was thinking we're talking about people like in their 30s now, and him having this irrational viewpoint of a friendship and the expectations of that. Not someone that was, if you're by your train of thought, it's more like they're in their teens and they're going, we're going to go to Miami and go scuba diving one day. And then in their mid-20s, he's like, you're getting married and having kids. You promised me.
That's kind of how I felt this whole thing was around.
Well, I hope that is what this is, because my version of the events is far worse. Let's go with yours. If it is that way, I would like to think that the friends that this OP does have in his life are trying to steer him in the right direction. They're calling him out for it. You shouldn't be calling anyone, especially if they're the partner of your best friend, a bitch.
Simply because he's upset with his friend.
You should be happy for him. You're about to be his best man in his wedding. You do sound like you need to do a little bit of growing up, especially emotionally. Please detach yourself from believing people owe you something. Because as an adult, if you really want to go to Miami and go scuba diving, you're going to make that dream happen. Now, I don't agree with people telling you, as far as your content creating is concerned, that you should stop and get a job. I don't believe you should stop. It's 2024. Go chase the dreams. But maybe also get a job on the side to make sure you're building towards the future, just in case. But chase the dreams. Just be responsible about it. So in my opinion, OP, you are the a-hole. You need to learn how to be a real friend.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, many of them put it this way. No one owes you a full expense paid trip. And many other commenters actually sort of called out our OP saying, it sounds like you're more upset that your meal ticket is being cut off here. This could be a reason why your friend is saying you need to get a job.
Definitely.
And mind you, I mean, you and I are doing YouTube. By no means does that mean it stops us from doing what we need to do when it comes to having a job. And it is twice as much work. But for us, it's worth it to be able to do this.
Yeah, we have fun.
Now, I find it funny, and a lot of other users did, because they say you became more of an a-hole because you're lashing out your anger on your buddy's fiance because you're not getting your way. And that makes you sound and seem very childish.
Entitled.
It's time to grow up. There's a lot of I's and me's in those sentences.
For sure. I can understand when the homie gets married and you're starting to think, especially when you're younger, that they're never going to have time for you or that everything's changing and nothing's going to be the same. But that's how life is. You just got to cherish the times when you have them. That's about it.
We come back to the present being a gift. Well, let's go to our next story, and this is going to be a doozy. Am I the a-hole for calling my 12-year-old son psychotic for digging into my past? I was in a poly relationship for years with my husband and his best friend. I met my husband in college, and he had been in love with his best friend for his whole life. It was difficult because they had homophobic parents, but being in a poly relationship and seeming straight was able to fix a lot of that. We loved each other more than anything, but unfortunately, our partner, my husband's best friend, ended up passing away from cancer. We nursed him through the process, but it was incredibly hard, especially on my husband. He was depressed for years. He still can't even say his name without sobbing through it. He says this heartbreak is something he'll feel for the rest of his life. He'll always be getting over it. But our kids really brought a lot of happiness out of him again, and I do believe he is happy on a daily basis. We adopted our son, Conan, about 4 years ago. He is 13 and very difficult. One day I noticed the box in our closet gone. It was filled of our old partner's things and a couple of pictures. I ended up finding it in my son's room. He asked me if Dad knows about my affair with this other man. One of the pictures was me kissing him. I almost laughed, but I explained that it looks bad, but we were in a poly relationship with someone his dad grew up with. It was a great relationship, and he would have been in our lives forever except he passed away. I asked him not to bring it up to his dad because the memories are still quite painful. He said, You really expect for me to believe that? I explained again it was the truth, but he said sure, okay, and was pretending to believe me. A few days go by, and I notice that he's been looking through old photos on our computer and through our old photo albums. I went through his messages. I shouldn't have. I know it. He was messaging his friends saying his mom had an affair with his dad's best friend, that he was disgusted by it and me. He said he was going to look for proof and get to the bottom of what happened, but he was going to find the truth. I'm not sure why, but this sent me over the edge. The idea of him looking through all my stuff, trying to find some proof of an affair. I ended up screaming at him and telling him he's psychotic for what he's doing and for not believing me. He was taken aback and said I was the one sleeping with Dad's best friend. I yelled at him again, and it was just nasty. I'm going to wait for his dad to clear things up, but did I do right here? Am I the a-hole? I do feel bad because he was adopted and does have a lot of issues with trust. I know his dad can explain everything and set the record straight, but I feel bad. He has to bring up something that is really painful for him, the worst thing to happen to him. No one wants to think about losing one of their life partners. Am I the a-hole?
All right. So boundaries are not something that this family is good at, creating them in a healthy way anyway. I think the only real issue I have here is, so the adopted son, they got him when he was 8.
Correct.
And it's only been 4 years. And they're still learning how to create boundaries with him and have it sounds like he's also got a lot of trust issues. Sure, I can hear it because he's looking for evidence to something foul. And that's an interesting mindset to be in as a 12 or 13-year-old. So not only does he see those pictures and then starts confronting you with assumptions
and accusations.
At that point, the father should have been brought in on this the second this went down, and you guys should have had a real conversation. Once that came to light, it is now your responsibility to explain what it is that you guys were doing. Because I can understand as a 13-year-old looking at it and seeing that my mom is kissing up on someone else, who also happens to be my dad's best friend. That's a whole lot to take in at 13.
Oh yeah, that's K-pop drama.
Again, I'm befuddled by the fact that you wouldn't have just brought in your husband and went, let's explain this. I understand that those memories might hurt, and I'm guessing it's been a while since the other partner passed.
I would assume so, yes.
If it's this long and you're having that type of problem where you can't even bring up the person's name without fully breaking down, go get yourself help, because now it's bleeding into another aspect of your life, which would be your child. So, in my opinion, OP, you're the a-hole. You should have nipped this in the bud the second it came up. I can't blame a 13-year-old for not having boundaries, especially when you're talking about them coming out of the system. But they also need to be taught to have those things. And they could have been taught that by you putting your foot down and explaining the situation that he had found with your husband next to you properly, like adults.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. And this was a whirlwind of comments to read. Let me go ahead and break down some of the items, and then I actually want to read one comment. It breaks down to a lot of people are in monogamous relationships. First and foremost, it is difficult for people to truly understand a poly relationship and what that entails. Coming at it from that point of view, I can only provide you it from a monogamous point of view. Our OP went on the full offensive against many commenters who are monogamous and trying to explain it from their point of view on what the relationship is like. I think when you see how hard they are trying to push their argument forward, you get this feeling that our OP just wants to win the argument rather than see the message. And mind you, there's always a message in what people says. Sometimes it's a good message, sometimes it's a wrong message, but most of the time when you gather enough of a consensus, you get a feeling for what a majority of people, it tends to ethically lean towards. In this case, they leaned for what you were saying, Timstradamus. The moment that this was out of the bag, It should have been talked about as a family. It would have been difficult, yes. Grief, especially when you love someone deeply, it's always difficult for me to talk about my father who's passed. That won't ever change. Will it stop me from talking to her son about who his grandfather was? No. And if he ever has questions, if there's ever those types of concerns that our son might have on someone that he'll never be able to meet and talk to, that's what I'm there for. That's what this child is there for. This child's now a part of the family. That's how he should have been treated. And things should have been explained from both parents. Instead, our OP, rather than try and understand that a 12-year-old's not going to understand what a poly relationship is and how complex that whole situation has become, they turn around and they lash out and call their own adopted child, who's probably feels like they're never going to fit in one place quite right. Because if their actual parents could, and I hate to say it because I've heard it before, essentially throw them away. This is why this child has trust issues. I have never had to deal with that feeling myself, but I have family members that have talked to me about how they feel when it comes to being adopted. They wonder why. Why is it that my mom and my dad didn't keep me? And if you're treating this child and getting angry at them because you're not explaining yourself, you're clearly only wounding them more. And that's what a lot of people pointed out here. You hurt this child. You called them names. When for them, it's a complex situation that you didn't even want to bring the other party into. Of course, there's going to be a lot of problems here. Well, let me go ahead and read just one part of a comment in the Am I the Devil thread. And please feel free, any listeners, if you would like to go ahead and read the whole comment because it was a doozy. But let me go ahead and read off this one part. They said, "God damn, if real, this sure is just a bunch of people trauma pinwheeling off each other like the most fucked up Beyblades you can imagine, huh?" I thought that'd get you. I appreciate this commenter because they actually put everything quite nicely into perspective of just how messed up this situation is. I will reiterate. I hope our OP actually reads the message that people are actually telling them. A child should never be a reason for why you get angry. You should try and understand where the misunderstanding comes from and fix it.
That should have been first and foremost.
Whew, that was quite a bit again.
Yeah, this is definitely a soap opera-ish train we're going on.
Well, I got more coming for you. For our next story, am I the butt for accusing my ex-wife of being sexually inappropriate with our son, who we share joint custody over?
Wee woo.
I, 36 male, was married to this woman named Ingrid, 38 female. Ingrid is a medical doctor, and she's also a Taekwondo martial artist who has competed on the national level. She is half white, German, half East Asian, Korean, and the only reason she is a U.S. citizen is because of our marriage. We share one child, an awesome 8-year-old boy named Eric, who we adopted years ago. We divorced when Eric was 5 years old, and we share joint custody of our son. There were very little hard feelings, and we both agree that it was for the best. We are so lucky because Eric is such a mature little boy who loves both of us equally despite our divorce. And just like his mother, he does Taekwondo. Like I said, for the first few years of our divorce, I had very little hard feelings. However, ever since 2022, Ingrid has been seeing another man, 37 male, and this has caused a great jealousy that I keep all bottled up. Last week, Ingrid posted a Facebook photo of both her and Eric playfully collapsed on the floor during their martial arts practice. Eric was right on top of my ex-wife, and he lay belly down on her tits, and my ex-wife was wearing a very inappropriate tank top in that photo, and the caption was along the lines of, "That feeling when you and your little boy are so worn out that you literally collapse one on top of the other." My son and my ex-wife were both smiling in the photo, and it looked like a good time. However, I was enraged, and I sent Ingrid a message asking, what the fuck is this? And I told her to get her breasts away from our son. A few hours later, my ex-wife called me, and her voice was shaking with anger, and she told me to never say such things again or she will go to the police. Is this something she can go to the police over? Am I the butt?
Yes, you are the bit. So, I guess we'll cut to the chase here. OP sees a picture of his ex-wife and his son, who is 8, and I guess it's right after they had gotten done with one of their taekwondo lessons or practice or sparring, whatever they were doing. They captioned it. It was a cute little thing. I guess the son is laying on top of his mom.
Yeah, he's probably exhausted because they've exerted themselves.
What's bad in that? Because she happens to have pubes?
They dangle from milady's chest.
That. I think the only person that needs to go seek some help is ROP. He sexualized his ex-wife's body for, I don't know. I think he's watching too much of Korn and getting too caught up in things that don't exist.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is overwhelmingly the a-hole. In fact, many commenters pointed out you didn't have a problem until you realized that she was boinking someone else.
That's very true.
Additionally, a lot of people said it's absolutely disgusting that you would sexualize your child like that. And don't. Get some professional help. Clearly there's something that you're holding on to. Maybe you thought you guys would come back because this amicable split doesn't seem to be amicable. Other commenters said, wait until he sees what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is.
Oh yeah, that's all over grappling. Like, what are you doing?
Oh yes. One commenter actually said, seriously, I did one class and it was like, welcome. Now wrap your legs around this guy.
Yep.
That's just what those sports entail. It entails people to get physical. And if you're going to twist it for your own purposes, you're the gross one.
Yep, he's projecting way too much.
Well, let's go ahead and karate chop our way out of this whole issue and go to our next story.
Hiya.
It's been forever since I heard that.
Yep.
All right. Would I be the a-hole for telling my friend I won't pet sit because of a stipulation her husband made? I, 30 female, have a friend, 30 female, I'll call her C, who asked me to watch her and her new husband's, 30 male, I'll call him D, pets, 2 cats, 2 dogs, from the 22nd to the 27th of December, for them to spend time with his family. Dee's mom bought plane tickets for them to visit for Christmas, and Dee had planned on having one of his friends watch the pets. Apparently, Dee and this friend had a falling out over League of Legends, and he burned that bridge with a very vicious comment. C asked me if I would be willing to watch the pets for them for the same amount they would have paid the other friend, $500. C also offered to cover my gas since I live about 40 minutes away without traffic, but would usually be around 1 to 1.5 hours due to traffic. I agreed to help pet sit under the impression that I would be going back and forth from my house to hers. I asked to meet with the pets before and get any information I needed in their care, etc. So we set a date to do that about 3 weeks before they left. We met up, and I made lots of notes and also wanted to meet her husband so he knew who was taking care of his pets and house while he was away. It was while I was on this visit that I learned that they wanted me to stay at the house overnight while they were gone and be at the house a good part of the time. They were willing to offer their food and use of their entertainment services on their TV. This was fine with me as I thought it fair and such. Now, I had only been dealing with C up to this point, and I barely met her husband for 2 to 3 minutes for the first time ever, since he was asleep till noon and was focused on building furniture that just came in when he was awake. Now things went downhill this afternoon because C wanted to talk since she was having anxiety about leaving her cat that she brought into the relationship. She has been at home with all the pets since she quit her job earlier this month, and even before that would visit and let them out during lunch, which is also something Dee would do as well. To help quell her anxiety, I talked with her and got the last bit of info she wanted to relay. One was a stipulation Dee wanted to tack on, which was me not leaving the pets more than 3 hours. I had already moved my work schedule for both my jobs to accommodate for me staying overnight to watch the pets. However, I was under the impression that I would be able to leave the pets for a relatively normal amount of time that I would need to have my own dogs alone for when I work, 4 to 6 hours minimum. When I told C that I had planned to spend time with my significant other's family on the 24th and my own family on the 25th, but would be willing to limit it only to my family's Christmas, since I knew that would be a bit too much time for both over 2 days, and 3 hours would not be enough for presents, food, cleanup, dessert, and the 2+ hours needed to travel from their house to mine and back to my family's Christmas. Since it was his stipulation, she needed to talk with him about it, but knew he'd be mad because I couldn't say yes to his stipulation. My friend said she would just stay home with the pets, which she knew would upset her husband as well. She texted me about an hour later telling me he was mad and would allow the 6 hours I estimated, but would take off $50, and wrote things that were obvious things I would do, taking care of the pets, as if I didn't have enough sense to do them in the first place. Now this upset me, since me spending time with my family on Christmas should not be a point of contention, and wanting to be honest about the amount of time it should take should not be up for debate. If this was such an important point, it should have been mentioned when I was getting all the other information and not days before they leave. I originally planned to counter, since the amount I would be paid per hour would be $3.47, and so for 6 hours to be deducted, it would be about $20. And just say he could take that off, but honestly, his disregard for me wanting to celebrate with my family while he goes to visit his own is just really unrealistic. So would I be the a-hole for telling them they need to find someone else?
Nope. Because how many days is it, real quick, that she's watching the dogs?
6 days.
6 days. How many animals is she watching?
4.
4. Okay.
As well as trying to fit in watching her own.
And this is during the holiday stretch.
Correct.
And he wants to give her less than $500 for 6 days of watching 4 animals during the holidays. I don't really need to repeat any of this story because that right there, those specific details already shows you the type of people we're dealing with. They're taking advantage of a friendship. You're gross. At the end of the day, that's what this comes down to for me. OP, you're not the a-hole. Set those boundaries. Put your family first.
So, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, there was one comment that our OP put in the comment section that I thought was interesting. They said, when Dee decided to cut the $50 off the original compensation, I knew immediately he did it out of anger and to try to manipulate me into doing what he wanted by scaring me with it. He thought he could control me the way he does anything else. However, I have a lot of experience with emotionally immature behaviors and refuse to play whatever game they want.
Atta girl.
Now, let me go ahead and provide an update.
Please be good.
Our poster says, I have made an update post with a bit of other info for everyone that is interested. Hi, everyone.
Huh.
I made a post yesterday about my friend and her husband's demands for pet sitting over the holiday. Here is a link to the original post. First off, I would like to thank everyone for their support and judgments. Also, all the references on prices from the pet sitters was very helpful. Now, I'm sure you were wondering what I did in this situation, and I decided not to pet sit for them. I messaged my friend this morning telling her friend, I honestly do not think I am the right fit for you and your husband for pet sitting now. I'm sorry, but you guys need to find someone else. This was a difficult decision to make, but I just do not feel comfortable now with the turn of events that have occurred. So far, she has not responded. I am perfectly fine with this because I don't think having her and her husband is something I want. I am a recovering people pleaser and really needed to know that my boundary was reasonable. But having so much support shown really helped. I will be enjoying my Christmas stress-free with my family and own dogs. I will also be spending time celebrating with my significant other and my other very supportive friends. Some things that I also wanted to address. I have been friends with her for about 15 years. About 11 of those have been long distance, and we haven't been that close in recent years. She has only known her husband for 6 months and has been married for 3 of those. They did not have a ceremony, but went to City Hall to get married, so I did not have a chance to meet him before checking out the pets. I am worried about her being in this marriage, especially since she is pregnant and seems to be swept up very quickly with him. I had been on alert about him since he had her meet his son on their second date, which also made me question his parenting as well. His blow-up with his friend that was supposed to pet sit wasn't over a single game, but over them thinking he cheated on ranked games since he did worse when playing with them, and he said it was because he played with them for funsies. Edit. I have not heard anything from my friend at this point. If anything changes, I'll update. Additionally, our OP says, as far as her reaching out, I'm definitely not closing that door on her. I think space right now is needed though. In any case, I won't deny her help and plan to do the best I can if my concerns turn into actualities. If anything, as you can tell, a lot of commenters were reaching out saying it sounds like your friend is probably going to be in a really bad relationship if he's this controlling. So controlling that he would accuse his friend of cheating during ranked games? I love League of Legends. I can tell you I've played ranked and I've played for fun. When you're playing for fun, you do things that are out of the normal. Your play becomes shoddy at best because you're trying things that you would never do in ranked because you play safely in ranked. Mind you, this is getting into nerddom, but I just had to point that out there because it bothered me so much.
I think at the end of the day, she got some pretty good advice from everyone. Just keep the door open for your friend. And good job on you for setting the boundary. And I have one question. She says that people gave her references to how much money she should have been paid. Did anyone actually say the amount? Do we have a quote?
So there was quite a bit of comments that actually provided the feedbacks on the rates that our OP should be asking for. And for a lot of people, it was approximately about $100 to $150 every day during a normal time frame. Yeah. And I'm saying no holidays. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, that stuff raises. But if you're talking about $100, it's about $660-ish dollars. If you're talking about the higher end, which is $150, it's closer to $900. In the end, every individual said, look, we tell people to come and take care of our pets, but we understand that they have to leave them sometimes for 8 hours. And we're cool with that because that's just how life is. People still have their things to do. Making sure your animals are fed and taken out is what we're looking for.
Yeah, so they were trying to basically pay them half of what the actual job is worth.
And mind you, half of what the normal job. We're not even talking about holiday stuff. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about a proposal. Am I the a-hole for rolling my eyes at my boyfriend's proposal because it took 25 years of me begging? Yesterday, after dinner, my 52 female boyfriend of 30 years, 53 male, proposed to me. He just walked towards me holding a box and said to open it. It was a ring, and I had pictured this moment a million different times, but never thought I'd be so apathetic. My boyfriend then said that he was retired now and wants to kick back and enjoy life with me, and would love to do it all with me as his wife. A nice speech and all, but from the 5-year mark of our relationship onwards, I had been making clear my deep desire to marry and was consistently dismissed, given empty promises, gaslit. We had been through the gamut with therapy, and one counselor implied that me telling him we needed to go to therapy and getting his butt on the couch still means nothing if his mind has been made up. I was in denial about the fact he was just giving me the false illusion of progress to stall. My boyfriend and I have 4 kids. The oldest 3 are adults, while the youngest is a 15 female, was sleeping over elsewhere when this all went down. All of our kids went to a private school filled with typical Southern soccer parents. I had to endure PTA moms' jabs about me not sharing the last name with my kids. Preteen years were hell because the other kids would taunt my kids by saying, "Your dad would rather sin and go to hell than marry your mom." My boyfriend's mom would tell him marriage would be selfish on my part. It was just a piece of paper. My boyfriend ended up raising up the ranks until he became an executive. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I felt like there was always a power imbalance, exasperated by the fact I could be tossed anytime. I partly did stay because I wanted my kids to have the best life, and because I felt lucky and proud to be partnered with such an intelligent, successful man, but also because I loved him. These past few years, my boyfriend's career has taken a downturn. He will never be poor, but the company he was part of took a nosedive during 2020, and he had made enemies out of associates/board members. He decided to step back from his role and take the generous severance agreed upon. Now he is living off his investments and wants to relax. I did not like how his career ended and how he treated people, and had been deciding whether I wanted to leave and find somebody else after our youngest turns 18. So the proposal was a shock, because I should hope that he noticed I have avoided conversations about the future as of late. He rattles on about downsizing our house so he can travel, and also cutting back on our other expenses, but we're not married, so it's all his money/house anyway. He did notice my eye roll and was offended. He asked what's wrong, and I said that suddenly now that he's downsizing, I'm good enough to marry. He got mad and said that now that he's downsizing and no longer an executive, I suddenly think our relationship is disrespectful, and started implying I was a gold digger. I was so angry I walked out and said I might just go out looking for a respectful relationship because I don't know what respect is anymore. Am I the a-hole?
What a mess. So we've got a OP that's been in a relationship for over 30 years, is what she said?
Correct.
4 kids. The last one's 15, and the other 3 are all out of the house and moved on. She has said throughout their relationship together that she's wanted to get married, and how much them not being married has put a strain on raising the kids. And now that I guess the longtime boyfriend is retiring, I think she says that he's 52, something like that. That's a pretty nice age to be retiring at.
Oh, the luxury.
So now he's trying to downsize, and then comes walking at her with the ring. And this is, again, something that they've had quite a lot of, I'm guessing, arguments over and about. And they even went to couple counseling to try to meet in the middle about this for 30 years. And all of a sudden, he's popping the question. The rolling of the eyes tells you everything you need to know. That's about as deep as you need to go into the story. She's not in love with this person anymore. How could you be? The one thing that was super important to you, that you wanted, has been ignored for 30 years and through 4 children. And then when he pops the question, his reaction to your reaction is, you're a gold digger. And now that I'm not making as much, or you don't see my value as much, you don't want to be married. I think you've already come to the conclusion on your own. I'm assuming you're only really here because you need the support that you're looking for to get done what you need to. It also sounds like you do what a lot of people do. They stay together for the kids. And all that did was create, in one little moment, that eye roll is just years of resentment and hurt you can't build on that foundation because there's not one. In my opinion, OP, I think she's strictly asking if she's the a-hole for rolling her eyes in that moment.
Correct.
No, you're not the a-hole for rolling your eyes. I think you're the a-hole for not listening to yourself, though, and putting your foot down long ago about this, because it sounds like you've been eating L's for 30 years, and you don't get those back.
Well, the consensus on Reddit was mixed. Honestly, a lot of them were saying she's not the a-hole for the reaction, but like you said, they said that she's definitely the a-hole for sticking with a relationship that was clearly one-sided. Now, let me go and take us on a journey, Timstradamus, because there's a lot in this story that we have to unpack. Our poster actually provided us an update, so let me go ahead and read that. At the time of my original post, my boyfriend and I have not spoken since the engagement fight. I've been with him long enough to know that when he goes and closes the bedroom door before I get in, that's a signal that I should sleep in one of the guest rooms, so I did that. However, this morning I broke the ice. I told him about how dismissed I felt over the years. I also said that we are both in our 50s, and these last few years have taught us that people at work who kiss the ground you walk on every day can easily turn on you the next. And true partners in life are valuable and hard to find, so I wished he treated me like I'm valued. Instead, he treats me like he thinks prettier, better, and just as loving is always around the corner. I apologized for the eye roll, but told him that if he wants marriage, I want a quick, committed timeline and genuine happiness from him to be marrying me. I don't need a big party. He listened to me and finally asked if this was about the money/security. He told me that being an executive's girlfriend required things of me, but if I wanted to work, I could have. He said he doesn't think I'm grateful enough for the position in society I was in due to his career, but that he's not mad about the eye roll. He said he didn't succeed by being that sensitive. He went on to say I was not his prisoner, so I can leave at any time, but to remember he won't tolerate being made my prisoner either via manipulation. He said that for what it's worth, the engagement ring is mine, and I could do whatever I wanted with it. He will not be accused of not providing for his daughter, so be assured he won't shirk child support, but that he felt what I said before was emotional blackmail, so he no longer wants to go forward with marrying, but says if I'd like to travel with him, that's fine. Him traveling is non-negotiable, and so if I wanted to get a job, it would have to be a remote job. It was a sad conversation, and I spent a few hours alone after that. I felt I had nothing to lose, so I asked him if he would support me getting an associate's, but that most associates for technical careers were in person. He then dropped the bombshell that if I wasn't traveling with him, he wasn't going to go those periods without sex. I was astounded by his callousness because he's back to take it or leave it. We fought again with me saying we're all feeling the effects of age. I've supported him through health issues, and if he thinks he can just find somebody who has that loyalty I've shown him, he's wrong. At this point, I'm looking for ways out. I can't say I haven't been tempted to say I'll travel with him and try to get a remote job, but also realize how resentful I am that he continues to need to have the power in the relationship. I don't think I'll ever know my value truly, but something's telling me there has to be better out there, at least in a partner. Now let me go ahead and provide us with the perspective of a commenter, which I think might be a cold dash of reality. This commenter says, "You're the a-hole to yourself. I'm an old 65 plus lady, and I have seen this scenario happen so many times. And it has never been a good thing for the woman involved. In fact, it has been an outright tragic disaster. Poverty is knocking on your door, OP, and it wants in. You have screwed yourself over in so many ways, the biggest of which was not to work over the last 30 years. You have no investments, no social security units earned, no 401k retirement, and no property. You made another huge mistake. by not just grabbing that ring and immediately marrying your boyfriend, thereby cementing your ability to share in some of his investments, Social Security, etc. I don't care how unappreciated you felt. It was a moment in time, and now it's gone. A good lawyer may help, depending on where you live, but it is in no way guaranteed. If you had immediately married when he proposed, and he lived at least 10 more years, you would have been able to get widow's benefits, but not now. Now you get nothing. Do you have any money at all? Your own bank accounts or credit of any kind? At your age, it is a cruel world without credit or money. You had better hope that one or more of your adult children will take you in, or you could quickly find yourself homeless. I'm sorry to be so brutal, but I don't think you have any clue how terrible things can get for you unless you can find a way to make an actual living. Even if you do, don't expect to ever retire. You, as many women are, will be working until you die. I am so very sorry.
She is correct. You went 30 years without working, and there's nothing to your name. That commenter said it best. It can get very dark outside, especially if you're not preparing yourself.
Let me go ahead and read our OP's last update. Our OP said, "So last update from me for a while. I have decided to start sending in applications for work from home jobs such as social media manager, operations assistant, and bookkeeper as soon as I can get a resume together. I have downloaded templates online and am looking into displaced homemaker programs. There are some resume tip websites that are saying they have helped homemakers land $60,000 jobs, and I am going to work hard on my resume. I hope that when they see my earnestness in the interview, they would be moved to take a chance on me instead of saying that a white-collar job is too much for me to ask for when I'm willing to work hard. I feel that after running a household, that these operations and administration jobs, as well as social media management jobs, since I've done the photography for my family and friends, would be within my scope of experience. I hope my comments have not come off as spoiled or out of touch. I apologize if that has offended anyone. What I was trying to say is that I want to be able to rent a studio/one bedroom in a semi-safe neighborhood, and I've heard that new grads are able to make $45,000 to $50,000 a year semi-remote in business administration or marketing, and then hit $70,000 to $80,000 in around 5 years, and hope that if I show my intent to get certification in those fields, that employers would give me this opportunity for me to rise up the ranks. I just need somebody to take a chance on me and let me prove that I'm a hard worker. I'm not above applying to the big box realtors and such, but people who work there seem to all be teens or else adults with dubious criminal pasts. So for the sake of my safety, as well as the promotion opportunities available for desk jobs, I would like to explore all of my options. I will not sell the ring as of right now out of respect for my partner. However, if he shows me any more displays of disrespect, I will sell the ring. I will, however, do everything I can to prevent myself from falling into poverty, and if that means seeing a lawyer, I will do so. But in my opinion, new grads don't have that much more experience and much less invested in a job, so they can pick up and leave at any time. So I feel I'd be more reliable hire."
Based off of everything she just told us in that update, I am pulling for her, and you do wish the best, but you can definitely hear the bubble that she's been living in. I wish life and finding work was like that, and that employers did just see that people want to work hard, and that's when you give them a chance. But she's about to get an eye-opener as to how difficult it is outside. And I'm not saying that everything she gave to her family wasn't just as important as what her husband was doing. But unfortunately, those are two different things.
I definitely agree with that. If anything, there were a lot of commenters that say, why stay with him? Our OP said, because I was a stay-at-home mom of many kids, and he was this big executive, So I felt if I offended him in any way, he'd use his influence to screw me in a custody battle or otherwise make my life miserable.
I can just hope for ROP that she has a strong relationship with her kids and maybe she can get some help through them to get on her feet and in the right direction. Hopefully this story doesn't have a bad ending.
Agreed. Well, let's go on to our next story and take a trip. Wait, there's only an invitation for you? Am I the a-hole for not allowing my wife to join me on a siblings trip? My siblings and I, all 30s to mid-40s, planned a trip together for a week to a ski resort. There's 6 of us. It was several states away, and 2 of my siblings drove since they lived closer. 3 flew, and I also flew, so I wasn't on the same flight as any of my other siblings. My wife had asked me if she could come as she wanted to be included. I declined, saying this was a family-only trip with me and my siblings. When I got there, all of my siblings had their spouses or significant others with them, and everyone kept asking where my wife Sarah was. I told them I told her to stay home as I'd figured it would just be us and didn't expect partners to be invited. Everything was planned via sibling group chat, and while I didn't read everything, I don't recall seeing anything mentioned about partners being invited. Later, once things had settled down, I called Sarah and told her all of the partners were here too and everyone missed her. I also apologized for not realizing partners were invited. She then asked if she could get a last-minute ticket and come join us. While we can afford for her to, it's near the holidays and last-minute flights now are expensive, and we'd be on a very tight budget until the next time either of us gets paid. Too tight for my comfort. So I ended up telling her no. It's not really in the budget, and to enjoy having the house to herself for the week. Sarah said I was being unfair, and if I could take a week-long vacation without her, she deserved to do the same. I told her this wasn't intentional, and her leaving for a week would be purely retaliatory and petty. Sarah said if I wasn't going to let her fly out and join us, it was only fair she gets to take a vacation too. Instead, she's stuck at home where she's got to work, take care of my 3 dogs. Our 19-year-old niece would happily crash at our place and watch the dogs if we asked, take care of the house, and it's going to be raining all week, so it's very dreary there. I told Sarah she's being ridiculous, and I don't have time for this as I've got plans to go out. She called me a jerk and hung up. She's ignored my calls and texts since. Am I the a-hole?
You have found it. The spicy meatboo. So this one's just, it's infuriating to a different level because it starts initially harmless. He says that he's going on a siblings only trip and the wife says, okay, well, that's great. Have fun. She's staying back home with 3 dogs and I guess it's raining all week and she's just going to keep working while he's going on this vacation. Is this during Christmas?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So he arrives and then he starts looking around going, oh, I did a big goofy, which I don't believe he did because he's looking around and everyone brought their significant others. And then he has the gall to call her after realizing this and explains to her that, oh, by the way, everyone brought their partners with them.
They missed you.
Oopsie poops. Yeah, they wish you were here. And if it was a genuine mistake, because again, I don't know how you make that mistake, especially when you're in plans and talks with everyone. People are always talking about who's coming and who's going on these big family trips. It is a full thing. So I don't know how you gloss over that everyone's bringing their partners with them and that you should, in fact, probably do that as well. As he's talking to her with everyone there, she rightly asks, well, can we get a last minute ticket so I can also enjoy the vacation and the holidays with the family too? At that point, as a good person, you go, yes, let's book you the ticket. I'll pick you up tonight. But then he goes, no, you're just going to make things a little more tight around the holidays than they should be. Tight doesn't mean non-doable. It gets tight for everyone around the holidays.
But he doesn't want to eat bologna sandwiches. He actually says that in the comment section.
Does he really? Oh, no. I would gladly eat bologna sandwiches with you if it made sure you were with me with the family during a holiday. I'll kind of sum it up like this. Obviously, our OP is a giant a-hole. I'm shocked that at 30, our OP doesn't realize that seldom does life kind of revolve around the destination of where you're going so much as it is the person you're going there with. And it says a lot to their relationship.
Well, let me go ahead and go into all of this. The consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, our OP was actually pretty active in the comment section. A lot of Redditors kind of felt like it was excuses, and that's sort of how they treated all of it. Now, I do have to say, if you're facing financial burdens and you can't do the trip, and I understand you, Timstradamus, for you and me, if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. Just because it's tight doesn't mean it's impossible. But our OP said that financially it would not be feasible.
Yes. But that's not what I heard. I heard it would be tight.
I'm giving the benefit. Maybe he meant it was not financially feasible. All right. I will go ahead and put that out there.
Okay.
If that was what he intentionally meant to say. For me, I can understand that. I get that. Maybe it's just the accountant in me that says if the numbers don't match, you can't make it work if it doesn't work.
Yes. Being financially responsible is important.
However, this one comment really bothered me. It bothered me quite a bit that I'm going to read it to you. He said, "We usually get along great. I screwed up this time, but I also don't want to spend the rest of the week fighting with her or getting the silent treatment." That bothers me because it says that there's a will, but you're trying to find a way out. You can deal with her being upset and on the trip and potentially change her feelings to something great, but instead you're leaving her alone to stew on this for a week. Not talking. You're going to come back from a great trip and then everything's going to turn sideways the moment that you get home. How is that okay? Now, there is one commenter that I will read because I like how they bullet point things. And you know me and bullet points. They said, "You're the a-hole. You're being ridiculous." Bullet point 1. When no one explicitly told you no spouses and she asked to join, you were the a-hole for not asking them. Bullet point 2. When you found out all the spouses were there, you were an a-hole again for not letting her join when there was still plenty of time. Bullet point 3. You were again an a-hole when you said she was being petty. She wasn't getting revenge. She just wanted to not be left out of the family. Bullet point 4. When she said she deserved a makeup vacation for herself, you were an a-hole again for disagreeing with that. Of course she deserves to have just as many vacations as you. What the fuck? Our commenter wrapped it up by saying, "It seems like you hate spending time with your wife, and you hate the idea of her spending any time or money enjoying herself. There is not a pinch of empathy or love in this post." For me, making a memory is only truly great with the company that you have.
That's why I'm shocked that at 30, he doesn't understand that. But our bullet point commenter probably nailed it right on the head. He just doesn't like his wife. Like,
that's pretty sad.
If that's all you had to tell people. Like, I just don't like her. Oof. Could you imagine the letdown on the other side of that phone when you go, "Oh, they're all there? Can I come?"
They miss you, but no.
Oh, oh man, that's some cringe.
Well, let's go into our next story. And let's see what you think about this work thing. Am I the a-hole for not doing anything to prevent my female 35 husband, male 35, from cheating with his work-wifey, female 25? So I met work-wifey last Thursday at the Christmas party. She introduced herself as work-wifey, and she called my husband work-hubby and told that to everyone. When she saw me, she just exclaimed, "Oh, we're like two totally different people. How weird is that?" Not weird at all. We don't know each other. No, I mean like because X and I get along so well, like we like totally get each other and have a lot in common, like totally. That's why he's like my work hubby. I didn't know what a Manic Pixie dream girl was, but apparently she was one, and apparently it was something to brag about. I just found the whole thing very amusing, but on our way home, it wasn't very amusing anymore. I felt a little bit of ick watching my husband's profile, wondering what was going on in his head. He has told me about his new colleague that he got along with. He told me that she was great at her job and that she was a gamer like him. I don't even know how to hold the joystick properly. Not even sure if it's called a joystick anymore. Ugh, I sound like a boomer, don't I? I know that they text a lot too, even on weekends. I never thought about that before now. I found myself sat on the toilet seat at 3:30 a.m., scrolling through his phone in total silence not to wake him up. She is very youthful and quirky. Her words, not mine. She is very funny too. Again, her words, not mine. She calls him hubs and hubby in every text. And in one text, she warned him that men fell easily for her and that she just wanted to give him the heads up. I guess it is because she's a youthful, quirky, funny, manic, pixie dream girl gamer. Her last text was from the same evening after we left the party. She wrote that she was pissed that he didn't say goodbye before leaving and that I was a bit surprising to her because she didn't expect him to have this type, "Oh my God, your wife is boring. I didn't expect that." I felt ashamed when I came to my senses, cowering over his phone and reading weird and very juvenile messages instead of being sound asleep beside my husband. That makes me safe in our relationship. But I couldn't help but agree with a manic wifey in some parts. Why is he continually engaging with her? He doesn't flirt back, nor does he initiate conversations, but he doesn't really shut her down. My husband can be stupid in not noticing flirting, but I feel that this is just beyond being stupid. Does he enjoy the attention, or worse, does he reciprocate it? In that case, she is not wrong in what he is doing with someone like me, who is totally different from whatever is going on between them. Today, I had my usual brunch with my mom, aunt, sister, and sister-in-law. They said that I was an a-hole for not nipping it in the bud, and by it, they meant the budding affair. I disagreed and tried to explain that I couldn't be in a relationship where I needed to stand guard to keep away temptations. I want a marriage where he is with me because he wants to be with me, and if he cheats, then he doesn't want to be with me. My mother was the one who got most upset and called me a moron and an a-hole and said that this wasn't the mature thing to do. I need to tell my husband to end this friendship because if I didn't, then I let him cheat. Am I the a-hole? I can't believe what life this is that they want me to lead and how it is so normal for my family to think that way. I want a willing husband, not a prisoner. I want someone who wants me 100% or nothing.
It is interesting how she's looking at her marriage right now. How old is she?
Our OP and her husband are both 35, and the wifey in question is 10 years younger.
Okay. It's all inappropriate from the start here. And I understand how she's trying to look at it, where she doesn't want to have to handhold her husband into making sure that he respects her and loves her. I can get that point of view. But the issue starts when, and I will forever die on this hill, there should never be a wifey or hubby at work. It's disgusting and it's disrespectful to your partner. So ROP goes to a work function, a party of some kind, and she's met at the door with this woman calling her husband hubby or hubs or whatever.
Work hubby.
Cute nicknames that she's come up with for her husband. I can understand her saying she doesn't want to have to behold someone to the relationship. If they want to cheat, they can go and cheat. Okay, that's great. But when it comes to setting boundaries in a relationship, that's a really easy one to do. I'm not saying blow up on the girl at the function, but instead of you, yes, sitting there feeling defeated on a toilet at 3 a.m. Because the thing is, you contradict everything you just told me. You want to trust him. You don't want to have to sit there and feel like you're making him be your partner. But then you're sitting there on the toilet, losing sleep, and all the amount of stress and drama that's caused for you. You owed it to yourself to have a real conversation with him. She's disrespecting you and he's allowing it. She asked the one big question that she should ask. Why is he entertaining any of it? That's a good question. Ask your husband. I love this he hasn't really initiated it. By him accepting that she talks about you like that, he's no better. I think for me, you are and you are not the a-hole. You are not the a-hole because if your husband's going to cheat, he's just going to cheat. If that's in his heart, no matter how many arguments or conversations you have, he's just going to do it. That's just how people are sometimes. But in my opinion, you also are the a-hole a little bit because you're not respecting yourself. The second you got confronted with wifey at work, you should have turned around to your husband and really got to the bottom of that instead of you're sitting there losing sleep at 3 a.m.
So the consensus on Reddit was overall not the a-hole, at least not for trying to strong arm your husband. However, there were a lot of people that were saying she needs to communicate with her husband how she feels. And that in no way means that you're strong arming your husband. It means that he's able to better understand you, especially your insecurities. That coming to the internet, that doesn't help your relationship. Now, there's a lot of questions from our commenters. And some of the questions is, well, I mean, how is it that your husband didn't hear any of this when she was talking to you? Why did he not put a stop to it when he was listening to this? And our OP came out and said he was interacting with someone else. This was just a conversation that was between her and the girl. So our poster provided us with an edit update. Let me go ahead and read that. Our poster says, "So thank you all. It has been a rough few days, but after today's interaction between my husband and Manic, Pixie, whatever, yes, I snooped again, I feel calmer. I have decided not to speak to him about it, at least not for now. I have written a comment about what transpired between them, and my husband didn't seem very happy with her. Maybe I have made it out to be bigger than it was in my head. Anyway, I will not snoop again, and I will not confront him about it. I will, however, tell my husband that I didn't like his colleague. Maybe not now, though. We have this week left, and then we are having 2 weeks off that we've been looking forward to spending together, and I want to enjoy the holidays with my husband, not talking about stupid and insignificant people." So let me go ahead and actually read what our OP put in the comment section. They said, well, she asked why he was ignoring her this weekend, and if it was because I made him, because wives are usually jealous of her once they meet her. She asked if I talked about her at all, and my husband seemed genuinely surprised, said that I didn't talk about her or the party at all because we left early. She called me boring again, and he said that this was the second time she disrespected me and that he didn't appreciate it, but thought she was joking the first time. Then she again told him that she didn't think we were a good fit and was surprised to see how I was because we didn't seem to have a lot in common, and she talked about gaming and music. He said it was shallow-minded to believe having the same superficial interests equals having a lot in common, and laughed. She called me boring again, and he said that she was great at her work and all, but that she shouldn't text him privately again. He stopped answering afterwards. OP also said, I read his texts. He didn't talk to me about anything. He even seemed genuinely surprised that she asked him if I mentioned her to him. Why would she mention you? We only stayed a couple of hours and went home.
That still doesn't make me feel good about the state of their communication. So I don't know. You can give me the feel good points if you want like that, OP, but you still need to learn how to communicate with your husband. What you just did now was avoid all of it. But you still went through his phone. You still are wrong. So you trying to take the high road and go, well, now I know everything's good. I just snooped through his phone, but I won't do it anymore because now I think I can trust him. Was there anything good that happened out of this story? Outside of I just saw you conflict avoid and did not set boundaries and did not talk about your feelings. So how does your husband know what is appropriate and what's not? Just because now all of a sudden he's willing to sit there and go, don't talk bad about my wife. I don't know how to feel about the ending of that story.
I think there are a lot of lines that get crossed To me, I understand nicknames. I've been called a lot of nicknames. But when it gets to intimate territory, I nip that at the bud. For me, my work is very professional and I don't mind being friendly, but there's a difference between being friendly and then being friendly.
Kicking off a real relationship with someone.
And never have I ever wanted people to think that I was crossing that line. But the first thing is, if you ever had any type of suspicion or were uncomfortable with something, Timstradamus, I would want you to tell me.
That's how it's supposed to go in a relationship. What you're not supposed to do is exactly what you did, though.
Avoid it.
Everything's all good now. I'm just going to leave it be. No, you have every right to your feelings and you need to tell your partner.
Well, let me go ahead and provide you with another commenter's viewpoint in the comment section regarding their obtuse husband. They said, my husband was this obtuse in grad school. He had a friend that would send him the most inappropriate emails. The first time I met her, he was talking about joining the military, and she freaked out and said she could never let him do that. On our drive home, even my clueless husband was like, that was weird, right? I think you're right. Now I'm uncomfortable. He ended up cutting off the friendship because she became increasingly weird. There are some things that are innocent, and they are truly. Some people do have a lot of insecurities that are blown out of proportion. But if you don't let your partner know how you feel, they can never go ahead and assuage some of that insecurity. I think there are just a lot of people that believe conflict is just
bad.
Yes.
It's not. I promise. It's healthy and you need to have it within a relationship.
But there's a healthy way to have conflict, and then there's
Yes.
unhealthy ways.
You're allowed to be angry and upset with someone. Now, yelling at them while you're doing that, all right, that might be where people get scared of people slamming doors or yelling, but that's also something when you're in those situations, it's a good time to start teaching each other what's acceptable within your house rules. We don't yell here, we talk. We can have conversations that we don't agree with, but we can still do it as adults.
Agreed. Well, let's go to our very last story of the day and see if I can bring up our spirits just a little. Maybe. Am I the a-hole for refusing to replace my flatmate's shoes and skirt she ruined while doing a chore? I, 27 male, live with a flatmate, 26 female, who is also my friend. She was leaving to go to some friends and was dressed up and had some fancy clothes on. As she was leaving, she asked me if there was any rubbish to take out in my room, as she was going to take out the rubbish and place it in the building communal bins on the way out. I was actually going to do this myself, but since she offered, I told her there's a bag of rubbish in my room and everything is already in the bag. She's done this for me before and knows that the bag can be somewhat heavy. She didn't support the bag at the bottom, and it broke, and some of the bottles inside the bag fell out and their caps burst. This made a really bad stench, and her skirt and shoes were drenched in it. She blamed me for it and said I owe her new shoes and a skirt, and she showed me what they were on a website, and while the skirt isn't too bad, the heels are ridiculously expensive. I refused and said she should have been a bit more careful. She called me an a-hole and said I shouldn't be having such bottles in the bin, even though she knew about that from before. And even though she's since cleaned the shoes and they look all right, she's acting more cold towards me. Am I the a-hole?
What was in the bottles?
I'm so glad you asked, Timstradamus.
Uh-huh.
One commenter said, "What the hell, dude? That's disgusting. If you have a bathroom in the flat, get off your butt and use it. You have exposed someone to your bodily fluids, and that is completely unacceptable." Someone said, "Wait, the bottles have pee in them?" Our OP responded and said she can and has used the shoes again. Once dried for a while, any bacteria isn't going to survive in an anhydrous environment. People don't throw away their shoes if they step in dog poo or pee. Another commenter says, "That's on the bottom of your shoe, dude."
Why aren't you going to the bathroom in the bathroom? Why is that a thing?
It's probably the game. I mean, I hate to say it. I've known people.
The stench the amount of problems you're creating with just being lazy and not getting up for a minute out of your day to just go to the bathroom and then come back. You owe your roommate an apology. You owe her some new shoes and the skirt. What a gross way to end off.
But it did offer a smile.
It's definitely a different slice of life, that's for sure.
Well, as you know, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. Some of the comments were, do better. Shame on you. I mean, I would just have to sum it up as it's just piss poor behavior.
You are so lame.
I am. I've been waiting to put one of my puns in here.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Nice way to wrap it up. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post now on Mondays. We would also love to thank all of our patrons for your continued support.
Yes, we love every single one of you.
Is this Galaxy Quest?
You got the reference. So, looks like we have our first animal of the week.
Animal of the week.
It's Rolo, a 6-year-old cat.
Pictures provided to us by listener V Canyon.
He said that Rolo's favorite hobbies are catnip and jumping really high.
Some would say Rolo jumped so high that he was never seen again.
What the fuck?
I'm just going to craft my own stories.
Meow.
If any listeners would like to have their furry friend win the Pet of the Week award, please send us 3 of your favorite pictures, their name, and a description to our email located in the channel description. We would love to feature your furry family, and I don't mean your siblings.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
As always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
It was a doozy, wasn't it?
Yeah. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I can't wait to get those McCrispy chicken nuggets.
Gross.
I can't wait.